to Stewart. But there's something that we'd like to show you, and you notice that I can walk all the way across the stage and all the way back, and there's no feedback or interference. So we are previewing some new technology that they have added here in Stewart Auditorium. Today we're going to have a brief meeting. We're going to hear from Dr. Silver about Credo and strategic planning. We are going to hear from Courtney Thomas. She's going to give us a sneak peek of some changes that are happening in advisement. We are going to hear from Crispin Stromberg about meeting the needs of our transgender population. And then we're going to hear from the Textbook Committee and Barnes & Noble. So I hope you are all ready to hear some interesting conversation. And I will turn it over to Dr. Silver.
Thank you, Dr. Lang. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be here. Nice to see everyone. As Kelly said, I was going to speak with all of you about the strategic initiatives that Piedmont College is currently underway with. When you walked in, you should have gotten a strategic plan summary document with another document that has Piedmont's strategic initiatives listed. And so really this is just because I know that we have a lot going on. I talked to faculty members who are involved in one or another of the committees and strategic work groups that are involved with these initiatives. I talked to them and they said, there's just so much going on right now, it's hard to keep track of everything that's going on. So this is an effort for us to get a large group together and just give a summary of what all is going on and how the different initiatives that are underway relate to each other. So let me just start by saying that when I talk about strategic initiatives, what I'm talking about are initiatives that we are undertaking, most of which involve some person who's leading that initiative, aided by a committee or task force. But they are initiatives that we are working on with one or another partner. We have consultants with whom we are working. The consulting company that is helping us with the majority of the initiatives that you see on the strategic initiatives handout is Credo. We've been working with them for a number of months now, at least since last summer, before I arrived, which would have been in July. This effort was already underway. About 20 of our 25 initiatives are undertaken with the help of Credo. And then we have an additional effort underway with Ruffalo Noel Levitz, which focuses on strategic enrollment planning. Right? So you've probably heard the names Credo, Ruffalo Noel Levitz, strategic enrollment planning, and so forth. What started off as two somewhat different strategic efforts to move the institution forward in a number of areas, we are now trying to make those converge. So even though we still work with these two different companies, they're aware of each other, they know we're working with both of them, and we're trying to consolidate our efforts and make them make sense. And so what you have in the strategic plan document, this summary document is the one that we already have shared with the Board of Trustees. It was primarily developed as a result of the work that we have done with Credo, and you can see the summary there that articulates different broad areas of that strategic plan, and then the time frame for the plan, which we currently envision as 2018, which started last year, to 2023, so it's envisioned as a 5-year strategic plan. But different phases of that plan will probably be completed during that time, so some parts of the plan will be completed during the first year, some parts will continue on and maybe be inaugurated in the second or even in the third year, and then we'll see where we are once we are further along and nearing the end of that plan, and see whether there's a need to renew that plan or head in a different direction. So that's this document. The document that you have that is the handout is the consolidated version. It's a simplified version of all of the different initiatives that are underway, and so you can see that there are initiatives having to do with different areas of college concern, from academic advising to the revamping of a first-year experience program, student mentorship program, to efforts to revise our employee evaluation process, our communication and messaging and branding efforts. There's a technology master plan that fits into that as well. Those are all things that are going on in collaboration with Credo. And then we have the last, if you look at the second page, the set of 5 initiatives that we're undertaking with the help of Ruffalo Noel-Levitz. We actually had a good long meeting yesterday with our consultant from Ruffalo Noel-Levitz to talk about our efforts there and to consolidate a number of more specific plans to enhance our enrollments. Just what I have up here is just a quick summary. I've mentioned the 2018 to 23 document. We have 21 Credo initiatives, 4 Ruffalo Noel-Levitz initiatives. If you want to know who's in charge of the different initiatives, they're listed there as what we're calling initiative owners. And then each of those initiative owners reports to one or another of our college vice presidents, which there are 4 of them. So I'm the vice president for academic affairs. The initiative owners either will report to me or to Perry Reddick, our vice president for enrollment management, our VP for administration and finance, or finally the vice president for institutional advancement. As you might imagine, the strategic planning and implementation effort is a rather complex undertaking because we have 25 of these initiatives going on. And so what we are trying to do is figure out an effective way to have the different initiatives collaborate with each other and be aware of each other's work. Because in a number of cases, these initiatives are distinct but related. And so the main challenge we're finding ourselves with is ensuring that we avoid new directions that are developed by each of these different initiative groups that conflict with each other. We want to avoid conflicts. We also want to avoid redundancies. We want to avoid duplication of efforts. So we're trying to get the groups, the leaders of the different groups, the initiative owners, to talk to each other. And so to that end, we're doing a couple of things. One thing we're doing is we're having multiple planning meetings in each individual area, and in some cases, smaller clusters of these initiatives are getting together. But we're also going to have on February 15th a meeting of all the initiative owners, whether they're part of the Credo set of initiatives or the Ruffalo Noel-Levitz set of initiatives. They're all going to get together in one room. I think it's actually going to be in here. Harry, is that right? We're going to meet in here on February 15th. I say this because I'm aware that there are at least a few people who are initiative owners who will not be able to be there. So what we would ask you to do, if you're not able to attend the February 15th sharing meeting, where we're going to have each initiative owner spend, I think, 3 minutes summarizing what they're up to and giving everybody else a heads up of this is what our project is. Let us know whether you're okay with this. Please appoint someone to come in your stead. So hopefully there's somebody who's in your task force who can join us for that sharing meeting, and then we don't lose momentum. Perry and I have talked about this, and our sense is that we'll probably want to have these big sharing meetings about once every couple of months. In the meantime, in between those, we will have smaller group meetings involving clusters of more closely related strategic initiatives. So for example, if you look at your sheet, you have the very first Credo initiative there is academic advising. Another one is first year experience program. Another one is student mentorship program. The initiative owners for those are Stephanie Almano, Emily Pettit, and Kim Crawford. The first 2 of those, and probably the first 3, are actually pretty closely related. And so decisions made in one area are going to affect decisions in the other. So we'll want that cluster of strategic initiative leaders and even members of the groups to get together and talk with each other to make sure that we are basically on the same page as we come up with ideas for implementation. Okay. And I think I passed over a slide here. So I can get back to it. Here, let me click back. Here we go. So one of the things, as I said, that we're doing to try to make sure we all stay on the same page is these large meetings and then smaller cluster meetings of related initiatives. The other thing we're doing, and this is particularly in the case of Credo, is we actually have a software system that Credo has made available to us in which we track each of the initiatives. Each initiative has a set of important tasks to complete by certain dates. We call those milestones. And so we actually use the Credo software. And Ed Carmack is the person who's the control tower and keeps track of all of this. But so for example, here we have a technology master plan. That's one of our initiatives from the sheet. And you can see it here in sort of, I guess it looks like purple to you, what has been completed already, and then the milestones that are already underway. And as you can see, we're at this point with whatever this assigned task is. This actually involves developing an IT plan theme, set of objectives, and various sub-initiatives. And we're mostly done with that. Dark green indicates the portion of a milestone that has been completed, and then light green indicates what we still have to do. So we're tracking it all. And so again, in terms of helping us to track that, if you are an initiative owner, I would ask that you make sure that you keep Ed Carmack abreast of the progress of your initiative. And if you have milestone reports to file with him, please do so that he can get the software up to date and we can keep track of really where we are in real time. Hopefully that makes sense. So but for all of the Credo initiatives, we've got this kind of setup where we can track what's going on with each initiative and hopefully keep ourselves on time and on task. So that's really the gist of what I wanted to share. And are there any questions? It's ambitious. There's a lot going on. I'm not sure whether Piedmont has undertaken this sort of effort in the past. But so far, it seems to be going well. There's just a lot of activity and a lot of dialogue going on right now. Questions? Yeah, Ryan.
Would it be fair to say that some of the initiatives are more critical than others?
Probably. And so what's going to happen, probably at a little bit of a later stage, once we have a better sense of what all of the recommendations are from the different initiative groups, is that we will have following that conversation, it will go up the chain of command to the campus leadership, certainly the president, the vice presidents, the cabinet, and there will be discussion about, insofar as we probably can't do everything all at the same time, what gets prioritized, what gets funded first. We might want to do everything, but just kind of getting everything squeezed through and making it all happen simultaneously is going to be a challenge. So that will be an administration decision. Also, the other thing I didn't really say, but that needs to be emphasized as well, is that these initiative groups do not replace earlier pre-existing shared governance structures. So the Faculty Senate is still very much alive, and actually we have the Faculty Senate, one of the subcommittees of the Senate, involved very closely in one of these initiatives, which is the faculty evaluation system. So what we're trying to do is create groups to some extent that tie into pre-existing structures, and so those structures, the Faculty Senate, will certainly also play a role in the decision-making about prioritization. So it's really, it's all of it going on all at the same time, and where possible, we've tried to not duplicate groups and give authority to groups where another existing structure like the Faculty Senate, say, already does exist. So, but we have yet to see how it all pans out because we haven't gotten all the recommendations yet. Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, on that last point that you made, I have a concern about that specifically. Not to say this has ever happened at Piedmont, but let's say faculty committee for the Senate is working on a plan and revisions and so on, specifically for like faculty evaluations. And at the same time, there is this initiative which is happening, and both of them sort of come maybe to different conclusions, different ideas if they haven't been communicating. I'm afraid that basically whatever the faculty has been working on is just going to kind of get kicked off to the side. And they say, no, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, well,
and so I'm just concerned that that's not the way that this is going to.
And I would be very concerned that that also not be the way that it happens. I think in that particular case, we have taken very intentional steps to prevent that from happening.
Good.
Because we have all the members of the Senate subcommittee, the personnel subcommittee of the Senate. Every member of that is actually on the faculty evaluation strategic initiative group. So it's not as though some other group is going to be coming up with something over here, and this group's, they're the same group. We intentionally combine them so that we would not have that problem. Now, if there are other places, it's the thing is we're doing the best we can. If anybody, I would just say this as an appeal to the group, if it ever seems like, hey, I see this list of people involved in this strategic initiatives, but I know that we already have a committee that you're maybe not aware of, administration, that is dealing precisely with this issue. Please, yank the chain, we'll stop the assembly line, we'll talk about it, and we'll make sure that everybody is involved who needs to be. So this is an evolving, very dynamic and living process. And so we exactly want to avoid that kind of situation. We're doing the best we can to do so. Other questions? If not, I guess I'll turn it over. Who's next? Courtney?
student planning. I'm sure that several of you, many of you, hopefully have already heard of this new platform that is coming your way, and this is just another information session about it. Student planning is starting this March, and it is going to be replacing WebAdvisor for student registration. The reason for this update is that WebAdvisor will no longer be in existence in the upcoming years, so it's very important that we make the transition now. The Student Accounts Office and Financial Aid has already transitioned to the new platform. Student planning has the same functions as WebAdvisor with some updated features. And today I have a brief video that's going to go over some of the functions of the program. And we will look at Starting in March 2019, registration will take place in self-service student planning. Self-service is colleagues' updated platform of WebAdvisor. Faculty, advisors, and students will have similar capabilities in student planning plus some added features. Faculty will be able to view their class rosters, track daily attendance, record midterm and final grades, and enter waivers. Advisors will have a detailed view of their advisee's account with information regarding their course plan, progress toward degree, test scores, and grades by semester. Advisors will also be able to view when the graduation application has been received by the registrar's office. Students will be able to add courses to their course plan and request reviews with their advisor. Once all courses are approved and it is the registration period, students are able to register for their courses. Students will also have access to their progress toward completing their degree, their test scores, and grades by semester. In addition, student planning is mobile and tablet friendly. The registrar's office is looking forward to going live in March 2019 and appreciates your patience as we transition to this new platform. Training videos and PDF step-by-step tutorials will be available and distributed to faculty and staff. We will also offer in-person training sessions during the week of March 4th. So basically, for the remainder of the spring semester, the only thing that we're asking faculty to do exclusively in student planning is to do the fall and summer registration. Since it's mid-semester, we don't want to ask you to start doing your attendance or doing your grades in student planning. You're more than welcome to. It all comes to the same place for our office. So all you need to do in student planning is advise your students and clear them for advisement once that period happens in March. So you have the option to submit your grades through WebAdvisor or student planning. We'll leave that up to you for this semester. But if you want to go ahead and start, that would be great. Let's see. For the training opportunities that I mentioned in the video, early March, we're going to be sending a faculty and staff email with login information for student planning and the step-by-step tutorials to get everything ready for registration. Also, during the week of March 4th, Sheena and I will be providing in-person training sessions for anyone who would like to attend. That information went out in yesterday's Lantern. It had every date that we would be on each campus and where we would be located. And last, we have, this is the information for the meeting. And we also have members of each school who have received additional training in student planning, and they will be good contacts in addition to contacting our office for questions that you may have regarding student planning. And for today, I realize that this is a lot of information just to view on a screen without having to log into the computer and go through everything yourself. So once you're able to have that function of really logging into your account, seeing your students, some of the features are going to be easier to understand. But for today, in general, does anyone have any an overview questions that Sheena or I can answer for you?
Are there training opportunities for students
Yes.
on how to use this?
Yes. We met with several members of SGA, and we've made some plans with them and residential staff to really get students in the dorms. We're also going to be meeting with off-campus cohort coordinators to target off-campus graduate students, and some of the trainings that we're offering are later in the evening, so they'll accommodate graduate students and undergraduate students who are coming in for the evening classes. Does anyone else have a question?
Will this impact Dropdown at all?
Dropout? No, we're going to use the same process. So,
Okay.
yes, once the classes begin. So the process isn't changing, and it's even the same company, everything, it's just the updated platform. It looks a little different, in my opinion. It looks more user-friendly than WebAdvisor. Anybody else?
School of Education is all in.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Well, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or Sheena Patrick or contact any of your power users in your school, and we'll get the information to you. Thank you, and we appreciate y'all being so patient with us while we transition. I know it's never fun to do a new software, so we really appreciate it. Thanks.
I'd like to introduce a special speaker to you today. As faculty, we always want to meet all of our students' needs. And it came to the attention of the Faculty Senate that there were some faculty members who really felt like they needed a little more information in how to meet the needs of our transgender population. And so Chris Stromberg is going to speak with us today. Some of you may recognize Mr. Stromberg. He was a Woodrow Wilson Fellow in our very first cohort. So he has been a student here at Piedmont, but he also has an experience as teaching in higher ed and in high school. And so he brings us a very unique perspective about ourselves and about the students that are coming to us. Please welcome Mr. Stromberg.
If I had known there would be this many of you, I would not have come. Oh. Okay, first thing I want to point out is that we are not transgendered, we are transgender. I didn't make that choice. I think it's terrible, but the community didn't ask me. So, transgender is an adjective. I have no idea why. Transgender students are students whose gender identity does not match the one that they were assigned at birth. They probably have a preferred name that isn't the one that you see on your roster, unless you guys have a different registration system from most schools. They may have a preferred pronoun that you're not expecting as well. Their identity may not be male, it may not be female, it might be some kind of non-binary, non-conforming identity. And so we have here, this is not, I'm sorry, I'm in school mode. I was thinking it was Promethean. All right, this little guy is the gender unicorn. And it's kind of a little explainer for people who are really unfamiliar with transgender identities. Gender identity is how somebody, in their mind, identifies themselves. Bless you. Their expression is, irregardless of their identity, might be feminine or masculine. So my students see my expression as feminine, even though my identity is masculine. They have a sex assigned at birth. And most of us know female and male sex as being assigned at birth, but actually about 1 out of 100 people are some kind of intersex. They may be physically attracted to women, men, or other genders, and they may be emotionally attracted to women, men, or other genders. So it's a complex thing, identity. And it doesn't always match what you might assume. So the whole point here is not to assume anything about the students. Okay, now, since I had no idea what I was getting into, I want to know what you guys want to know. Anything that you want to know about transgender students? Otherwise, I'll just keep going. Yes?
I guess what would be a good way to approach asking someone's gender or identity on, when you start a class? Would you say, maybe give me your name and the pronouns you prefer to use?
Yeah, I think when you're doing those introductions, like what is your major? Why are you taking this class? What is your preferred name? What are your preferred pronouns? Go ahead and put that in there. Make a note for yourself, just in case you might slip up. We have some theys at my school. And again, it may not be familiar to you to use the words they and them to refer to somebody in the singular, but a lot of younger people are going that way. That's how they're identifying, and so we do respect that. But yeah, just those first day of class introduction, that's a great time to gather that information so that you always use a respectful way of addressing your students. Any more immediate questions, or shall I keep going? Now, I was thinking from an institutional perspective a bit when I was thinking about this, because I was at Kennesaw when they were trying to accommodate their newly rising transgender population. I was part of that. I transitioned while I was in graduate school there. So some of the things they did and that are recommended for universities to do, and I don't know how much of this has been accomplished in the last few years here, but having a gender-neutral restroom or a gender-inclusive restroom in every building if possible. Offering gender-inclusive housing options. And that's something that's hard for people to wrap their minds around, but it's really sometimes the safest and certainly sometimes the most comfortable place for a transgender student to be, in an inclusive place. If there's a way with your new registration system to include preferred names and pronouns as part of the gathering of the data, then the rosters will already have that information on it. Offering gender-inclusive sports and recreational facilities, including changing areas. Again, they have many non-binary students. They may not feel comfortable in either the male or the female changing areas. And they may want to join sports teams that are inclusive. When I was here, you didn't have a GSA. Now you do. I think that's great. Support them. And there's a counseling center here on campus. I have visited with them because some strange things happened when I was here. And it wasn't anything to do with the school, it was just life. But there's a counseling center, they're very supportive. If there's a way to have them create a support group for the transgender students, that could be a huge help for them because having each other to talk to outside of the GSA can be very helpful. We had that at Kennesaw. That's one of the things the counseling centers did for us. Safe space training for faculty and staff. At least having a few people who are in any building, any major, so that students know that there's a place they can go when they need to talk to somebody right now. And then as faculty and staff, if you have a policy, model it and enforce it. So if there is a no bullying policy, enforce it. If the policy is that you call somebody by their preferred pronouns, model it. One direction. All right. Now these are the rights. And I included a bunch of links at the end of this so that Dr. Lamb can send them to you guys if you want to read them. But under the Obama administration, transgender students were, their rights were clarified, let me put it that way. They weren't given rights. They have the rights under Title IX. They were clarified. Our current administration isn't willing to let the Office of Civil Rights defend them, but they still have these rights. So they don't need to have any sort of psychological diagnosis or any physical transgender treatments or anything that people think you have to be transgender. They could still have their original assigned gender on their ID They are to be treated as how they define themselves. And colleges and universities need to include non-discriminatory and safe environments. They also need to expect transgender students to use the restroom with which they identify, the locker room with which they identify, but it's nice if you can give them additional choices too. And that's why the residence hall thing can be really difficult for the students if you don't have an inclusive one. Because if they want to live in the residence hall with which they identify, that option needs to be open to them, but it's also very helpful to have the gender inclusive ones for students who are non-binary or who prefer to be in that kind of environment. You must use the first name and pronouns that they go by. It's actually required by that Title IX. And you may let your athletics teams stay sex segregated, but if you have a trans male student who plays baseball, he needs to be allowed to try out for the team, or vice versa. So that they are to participate in sports per their gender identity. This is actually part of a very long Dear Colleague letter, which I am not going to read to you. But that is on this set of slides if you want to read all of the things that the Departments of Education and the Office of Civil Rights clarified. Let's see. Now, I'm thinking some of the things you guys might be interested in is how to be an ally. So that's the first link I put in. Campus Pride is a university and college level association. They have lots of information for how colleges and universities can advocate for and create safe spaces for their transgender students. One of these, I believe it's GLAD, does safe space training, but it might be Campus Pride. So if you guys wanted to have somebody come in and do training for the school, for the faculty, they do a train the trainer thing. They can come in and train a few people who will then populate everybody else with this training. And let's see, anything else? So basically just a bunch of resources that I thought would be useful for you guys to read through. Now do you have any questions? Yes?
Can these resource links be made available to the faculty either by
Absolutely,
email
yeah.
or somehow that we can get
I'll
those?
get them sent.
Thank you.
Yeah, she has the link, it's in
Okay.
here, so she'll send
Thank
it. Anything else? Yes.
How do certain colleges or universities become known as being inclusive amongst transgender communities?
Oh, that's a very good question. Let me show you. Let's see, Campus Pride. They actually have a list. Let's go out. I got it there. Okay. They have an index, just like HRC. And they have a specific one for transgender students too. So if you're following, best practices for including your transgender students, you can actually get yourself put on their listing as a transgender friendly college. Just as a company could be for HRC. Yes.
Can you explain a little bit about safe spaces and what that is?
It's when faculty and staff are trained to basically act as sort of a, not counselor, but as somebody that a student can talk to, somebody who will not be judgmental about their identity, somebody who can listen to them and maybe help guide them to the right resources if needed, if there's something that's beyond just, I need to talk.
And how do you get that training?
Either Campus Pride or GLAD have that listed on their page. Georgia Safe Schools Coalition does training. I'm not sure if they do it at the college level though.
Who is the GSA faculty or staff sponsor here? Is that- Who's Emily? Okay.
You got the name? Okay. Yeah, that's a great thing to have. There's research that shows that all students benefit from a GSA. Certainly at the high school level. When there's a GSA on campus, the students who are bullied for perceived homosexuality are less likely to commit suicide as well. Everybody benefits from having that. apparently I'm talking at Perk, and I will have a better idea of what I'm supposed to be talking about when I do that. So, feel free to come and I will have a much more organized thought process there.
Thank you, Chris. I think that was very informative for us. The Senate is working with the CTL to have some more training sessions. There are maybe smaller sessions, but more in depth. Also here at Piedmont, we have Dawson Woodrum, and he actually specializes in transgender populations. So he is a great resource for us if you'd like to reach out to him. And I will send Chris's links to you so that you'll have all of that information. Now I'm going to let Delvin Camford, the head of our textbook committee, introduce our next speaker.
Thank you. Just a little bit of history. Back in the fall semester, the administration came to the Faculty Senate and asked us to take up the issue of the cost of textbooks and its impact and effect on student retention and recruitment. And a committee was formed to look into this, to bring some sort of recommendation back to the Faculty Senate. I want to thank everybody that served in that committee to this point in time. We reached out to you at a previous faculty assembly to get input from the different schools about your thoughts on the current textbook situation. We heard from many of you. We heard a lot about open access resources. What we also heard was there are a lot of people who were in favor of that or looking into it, and there was a number of faculty that felt there was a lot of reservations they had about that area. We could find no consensus on that. The issues that came before us were basically three. One, from the faculty having the academic freedom to choose the text you thought was best for your class. The concern from the administration was the overall cost of textbooks and the fact that many students did not acquire them or acquire them late into the school year, and that was having an impact on their ability to perform well in the classroom. We have talked with our current bookstore about ways to overcome some of these problems. They work closely with the administration and with the committee and have come up with a proposal that the committee feels is worthy of bringing to the entire faculty for you to hear and to give your input before we make a final recommendation. But it definitely addresses the issue of faculty independence on selecting whatever text they want to use, even if it is an open access resource. You can choose it if you so desire, or you can stay with what you like if that's what you currently want to use. To give you more details about this plan and how it might impact us here at Piedmont, Joel Quiner, you're going to give the presentation for Barnes & Noble. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Please welcome Joel.
I appreciate your time, today, and I'm glad that we have such a big crowd here. I'm Joel Kreiner. I'm the regional manager with Barnes & Noble. I work with your bookstore manager here at U Davis to bring you all your course materials and other bookstore services to the Piedmont College campus. And it was quite an interesting conversation I had back in the fall with some of the members of your administration, Tom Estes, Harry Reddick, Dr. Silver. And they challenged me to come up with some new approaches to improving textbook affordability here at Piedmont College. Now the current, if it doesn't work, I can project. I did do a little extemporaneous speaking in high school and college, so can everyone hear me in the back? I'm getting the thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, so just to give you an idea of where the landscape sits today, as you well know, we offer course materials to your students in a number of different formats. Of course, everybody's familiar with new and used and digital, and of course, I think most of you are familiar with the fact that we offer a robust textbook rental program as well as a price match program here. But this is just where we sit today. We as a company have been looking to say, well, what are the next steps? How can we go farther than what we're doing today to improve textbook affordability?
introducing across the country include our first day delivery model, which is a course-by-course, tuition included model. So if a student registers for a course, they can, access their course materials for a low flat fee. We also offer our BNED, Barnes & Noble Education courseware, which is OER based. We call it our Loud Cloud platform. But the thing that excited your leadership here the most was our first day complete all-inclusive model. And in very simple terms, what that is that for one flat rate per semester, we can provide all of your undergraduate students with all of their course materials, no matter what course they're taking, for one flat rate. And we can do this without asking any of you to change the materials that you're using today, or make choices to change in the future. Very important. So why are we doing this? Why are we considering this at Piedmont College? Well, obviously, Dale and his team have solicited a lot of feedback about the choices that students are making, or perhaps not making, in acquiring the course material. As a matter of fact, we survey your students every spring. And last spring, when we surveyed your students, we heard from them that 43% of them waited until the first day of classes before they even started getting any books. And why did they do this? See if you guys were going to use it, see if it was worth it, see if they could find it somewhere else, et cetera, et cetera. 37% of the students did not have the materials on the first day of class, and 50% of students said they delayed purchasing their course materials due to initial cost. What you don't see here, and I actually tried to update this briefly before. Okay, I'm back. But before this presentation, but I didn't get to throw it up here, was a significant portion of your students are sharing with us that they're choosing not to purchase their course materials at all for one or more of their classes. How are they getting by? They're maybe going out and getting an old edition. Maybe they're sharing with a friend. Maybe they're just figuring out how to get by without buying it. But obviously to us, as your college store provider, as your partner, to you as faculty, and of course to the institutional administration, that puts a lot of students at risk, right? It can affect student success, retention, preparedness. So what would this model look like here at Piedmont College? For $300 per semester, plus tax, because the state of Georgia's got to get their pound of flesh, no matter what the model is, we can provide all of the required course materials to every single undergraduate student at Piedmont College. The program cost would be included in their tuition bill, and you as faculty can continue to use your favorite materials. When we were first presented with this challenge last fall, we went through and we looked at basically your history of use in your courses. What did you like to use? How many students, did you have in your courses? How much disposable content were you requiring for your courses? So those things that have to be replaced over and over again, like access codes. We looked at all of that. And we determined that for the undergraduates here, we could provide all those course materials for your students, replace all the disposable content every semester, and do it for $300. Now, I know many of you have heard the repeated figure that students spend $1,200 a year on course materials. I will stand up before you now and say that's probably overstated. When you actually ask the students what they spend, it's somewhere more around the range of $700 or $800. That's what they're reporting. But I can tell you, and I could share with you today, an analysis that we've done from 2 actual students, one's a freshman, one's a junior, to give you an idea of how this model competes with their current behavior of perhaps going out and buying the cheapest option available. So how does it work? This is really, in a summary, is how the program would look at here at Piedmont College. We facilitate all the transactions as a rental item. You already have 92% of your students reporting to us in the survey that they've rented 1 or more books from us in the past year. So this is going to be nothing new to them. Students will have a buyout option should they wish to retain the material for their personal library. We have experience with this program now. We've been running this program in a very similar fashion at Lees McRae College in Banner Elk, North Carolina for the last 4 years. And I can tell you roughly 8% of the students each semester choose to buy one or more of their textbooks out, in case you're wondering. We'll confirm the orders with the students by way of our website and make sure that the books are ready to pick up prior to the start of classes. Students may also opt to have the books shipped. We're going to recommend that they don't do that because your post office is going to hate us. What we envision is that the students would place their orders, or better yet, that we would be able to get their course information and assemble the orders based upon that, have them all packed up and ready to pick up on move-in weekend prior to the start of class. We provide Piedmont an invoice for items that are not returned by students at the end of the semester so that the cost can be billed to the student's account. Obviously, we want to incentivize the students, just as we do all our rental customers, to bring the stuff back. We want the books back. Okay, we don't want to have to charge the customers, but if so, we'll work with the school to make sure that those charges are put on the Bursar account. We agree with Piedmont College to review the viability of the program annually. So if your usage as faculty members changes dramatically, if you choose to use a lot more disposable content that drives up the underlying cost of the materials, then we'll share that with the school and ask for an adjustment as necessary. But there's a lot of other ways we can keep the cost down with this program if we see price pressure. For example, we may be able to work with you to use our OER-based courseware as an alternative to what you're using now. We also have, the ability to negotiate with publishers as we walk through this program to garner lower pricing that can help us keep the cost down. Again, we set a price at Lees McRae 4 years ago, one flat rate, and we still operate under that same flat rate. So we feel pretty comfortable with the number we've come up with. Piedmont College commits to submitting all textbook adoptions for the coming semesters by deadlines listed in the current contract, which are October 1 and April 1. I have to say, you guys are probably one of the best schools I have in my world. I know Judy probably gets with you every once in a while from our textbook department to get your orders in, but you guys are already pretty disciplined in getting your adoptions in, so that's why we thought you would be a good fit for this program. And then the bottom one is, this is sort of would be nice to have if we could have SIS integration in order to pull the students' registration information to create their orders, but it's not a requirement today. So what does this look like in real life? Well, I challenged Matthew. I said, Matthew, can you give me some real examples of what this program would look like for 2 actual Piedmont College students? And it just so happened he had a freshman and a junior working on his staff this past fall. So we asked if we could grab their course information and do a price comparison. And I know there's a lot of data points up here, but basically what we did is we took for each course, we created sort of a spreadsheet of all the various options that that student could have purchased that course material in. If it was available in a digital version, we included that. If it was available for rental, we included that. And then we conducted an analysis on it to see, is this really a good deal for those students? And what that analysis told us for the freshmen was that if they, for some reason, chose to buy all their course materials for the year in a new format, we're actually pretty close to that $1,200 figure that you see cited so very often. If they purchased with all the available used rentals, they could have knocked that price down to $702. And if they purchased the cheapest option available in any of those books, including digital, they could have driven the cost down to $667.70, or roughly $22 a credit hour. At $600 a year, we obviously still represent a significant savings, even over the cheapest option that's available in the market today. And on top of that, we're ensuring that every one of your students has the course materials they need for the first day of class and can come prepared to learn. Let's take a look at another example. This was a junior psychology major. Same data points. And here's the analysis. Actually, believe it or not, the junior, if they bought all new, would have actually spent even more than the freshman. And if they purchased the cheapest option available, they still would have spent over $700. So at $600 a year, this represents an even greater savings opportunity. Now, we understand that as you go through your career, especially in some majors, there may be certain semesters where you wouldn't have had to spend $300. This model is built over, garnering those savings for the students over a complete 4-year career at Piedmont. So it's an average cost model, much as all your students perhaps pay the same technology fee, or perhaps they pay the same health fee. Okay, hopefully everybody on campus is not using that health fee to its greatest extent every semester. But it is designed to be able to make sure that students have the materials they need to be prepared for your classes at the lowest possible cost in the marketplace. So this is just a quick analysis of what it looks like for Piedmont College. We project potential annual student savings of over $400,000. And also, there is a financial advantage for the school. As many of you know, we already provide a financial return in the forms of a commission to the school. Under this model, we can actually increase that return. So just to sum up, and before taking questions, our program supports student success and retention by making sure that students have all the required course materials for the first day of class. We can provide the best value for students by offering savings of up to 50%. Faculty can continue to use their favorite course materials. That's our #1 concern today. We can provide increased income for Piedmont College, and perhaps most importantly, providing student recruiting advantage. One of the surprising things we found when we implemented this at Lees McRae 4 years ago was while it was definitely effective in increasing affordability, the reaction from parents when we first introduced it was amazing. Like here, they did a summer orientation. The first year we introduced this, we stood up in front of them, introduced the parents to the concept, told them that the steps they needed to take advantage of it. They literally stood up and applauded. And I think that's part of what your administration sees here, is that we know that we're all of our institutions of higher learning are in a highly competitive landscape. And we believe that this model can help attract students to Piedmont College and attract their parents to Piedmont to consider Piedmont College in a way that hasn't existed before. Some of you may be asking, well, what if I don't have an undergraduate program? What about nursing? What about some of the other allied health programs? We typically recommend not to accommodate those students under these programs, but we can offer other discount programs for those, like for nursing and allied health and that sort of thing. We can customize that to the institution. We have had those discussions in Dale's group, and we've looked at different ways we could approach that.
Yeah, let them know that health sciences and nursing is not included in this program.
That's correct. Specifically, health sciences and nursing is not included in this program. And if you ask why, I gotta tell you, my wife's an RN. First off, I know how, and she went back to school at 50, and I witnessed firsthand how emphatically they want the books and they want to keep their books. And that's certainly what we heard as we approached other nursing programs about this. And so at Lees McRae, again, where they had a nursing program that they had just launched, we worked to pull together a package of books and discount that package to the students so it still represented a great value to them. So, what are our next steps? We're looking to confirm approval to move forward with First Day Complete. You guys play a very important role in that. That's why I'm here today, to get your feedback, answer your questions, see if there's anything that we need to tweak with the program moving forward. And then we would work with the school to update our agreements and launch the program for fall of 2019. So I'll Open the floor. Let me go start with the back. Yes, sir.
A number of us are beginning to use simulation software to supplement our course content. How would that be embedded in this program, or would it?
Can you share with me the company that you're obtaining the simulation software from?
There are a couple of them. One of them is a simulation that we use in our strategic management course, and another in digital marketing. They're different vendors.
Yes, so we are able to accommodate it. I didn't mean to imply that it would matter what the vendor was, but we're able to accommodate any sort of digital product into the program. We may have to explore how we would integrate that with your LMS here, if that would be the most efficient way to make it available to your students.
Our students are actually accessing this software independent of our learning management system.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to explore that a little more in depth with you, just to make sure that I've got the right answer. But we should be able to accommodate that under this model. Yes, sir.
I have two questions. If a text that is requested is available both digital and on paperback or in a physical text, will the student be required to take the digital over the text? Or does the student have a choice, or how does that work?
It's a great question. What would you prefer?
The student to have the choice.
Okay. So typically what we would do is we would provide the book as a physical book. It's one of the things, again, looking at data specific to Piedmont College here, one of the questions we ask is what format do you prefer for your classes? Like this year, 82% of your students told us they prefer print. So we built this model around providing print textbooks wherever possible. If a student wants to buy a digital version of the book, they can buy that in addition.
Okay. And then, I don't know if this would be included. Our art courses, we have a lot of expendable pieces of materials that are used each semester. Is this something that would be included in that?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is something that we measure very closely in this model. We call it disposable content. So all those MyLabs and MindTab and things like that, that is included in this program.
Paintings, canvas, and how far out into the weeds could we get with this stuff, because we have specific wants and needs.
Okay. So you mean for paintings?
Studio courses.
Oh, studio courses,
yes.
Art courses, right. That actually came up in the committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure if we had gathered the information on what those kits look like yet. Okay. But we'd love to get the information from you on, could we assemble a kit that we might be able to include in this program?
I'm not sure. That's why I was asking.
We'd love to talk to you about that.
Chris, to answer the question, it can be built in. It'll be a negotiation with the administration if they wanted to include it or not. But they're more than willing to do that.
All right.
We just have to decide if the administration wants that to be included.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly, you said it much better than I did. Yes, sir.
I'm going to build on that question. Let's say the administration says that they can't build in the kits for those students. Can the student opt to be a part of this program or not? Can the option to participate in this program be made available to the student, or does it become mandatory to attend Piedmont to opt in?
Yeah, it is a mandatory program. It's built as a mandatory program. Yes, sir.
I had a question about the buyout option. I teach English, and a number, especially my majors, when they buy books, it's literature, and which are usually not some of the higher priced books compared to, say, textbooks and such. And many of them want books. They're building personal libraries. And so, do they have the option? I mean, my understanding is that they're going to have to pay the $300 rental fee from the get-go regardless. And then if they had intended to buy the books from the beginning, they're going to have to pay more at the end, which will make the rental fee feel kind of like a penalty because they wanted to buy them from the beginning. And so how does that work? Is the buyout option just the retail value of the book, like as if they were purchasing it new?
The buyout option is the difference between what we calculate as the rental value of that book within our $300 package. We do track each of the books separately, and then we can offer a buyout option just as we do today on that book. And I understand your underlying question. Well, my students are English majors, but even English majors have to take courses outside of their major, right? Perhaps the odd biology or math course or something like that over the course of their career, where they may be spending $200 or $250 today.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's where this, this is absolutely, a program that's designed for students to garner the savings over the lifetime of their career here.
No, and that's actually not no, I understand that. It's actually not an English-specific question. It's just a question about if any student wants to buy any book, they don't get to somehow get back the rental fee.
That's right.
They're
They
paying
don't
the
get the rental
rental
fee
and then they
back,
buy
but
it.
it's the same as if they've gone in and rented, separate from this plan, they've gone in and rented, this is what was communicated to me anyway, correct me if I'm wrong. If they've gone in and rented the book, and at the end of the semester decided they wanted to buy it, they'd be paying the same thing under this program that they would have if they'd not had the program, they'd rented it and decided to buy it out.
Now, I may not have been clear in my answer. They do get credit for the rental fee. So, Matthew, you may want to explain a little bit more about how we conduct the transaction in the store today.
So let's say they're renting a rental book that's English and it might be $25, but to buy the book was $50. Then at the end of the semester they decide that they want to keep the book, then they wouldn't spend $50 again, and maybe the book was used so they would only have to spend $16 or $17. Something that's a prorated amount between what you've already spent and what the remaining cost. So you're not, yeah, with the remaining value. So you're not double paying.
Those are great questions. Yes, sir.
I'm going to kind of oversimplify things a little bit, but when you were talking about the financial aspects, and you said, students are going to be saving this much money. They would have spent this much, now they're going to spend this much. So students are saving money, and the college is bringing more in terms of commission. And so there's a gap coming from both sides there in terms of the money. Now, is that coming because of buying power, or is that because they're switching from purchase to rental, or where is that gap being filled in between those two things?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it comes from several directions. Number one, because we're able to do this as a 100% rental program. And do it for 100% of your undergraduate students. There's an economy of scale there for us that we could leverage not only our local management team to help manage this program, but also one of our subsidiaries, which is called MBS Direct. They're based out of Columbia, Missouri, where they would actually warehouse all of these books and assemble them for us and distribute them and help us collect them up and that sort of thing. So that's one of the big sources of that sort of ability to bring, best in marketplace price to this campus. That's the biggest piece of it.
Can I just add on that? That came up several times. A large number of our students do not use our bookstore to get their books.
Right.
We had a student on our committee for the very purpose we want to get feedback, what the students think about this plan, and it's possible for a student to go out there, if they're a really good shopper, it's possible for a student to go out there and get their materials they need at less than $300. But a couple things. One, they won't have it on the first day. It may not be the current edition. And they may come to you and saying, I'm still waiting for it to come in 2 weeks or 3 weeks after class occurs. All those students that are doing that now would be captured by this program, and they'd have the material from the very first day. Yes, in some semesters they may have to pay more on that $300. Because they gave us examples of it. Gee, it only cost me this semester $100 to get all my books. But they didn't have them on the first day, and they can't be guaranteed that every semester they're going to be able to do that. This takes that part of it out of the equation. Everybody will have the books, have the same materials from day one going forward, and they don't have to worry about how much money they have to come up with each semester. It'll be built in to the tuition fee structure, which also means that if they're receiving financial aid can help pay for it. They don't have to wait for the so-called refund check. I've heard this from my students. Well, I'm getting something back from financial aid, but I'm not getting it for 5 more weeks, and then I'll buy my book. Well, you need it now. You don't need it 5 weeks from now. So that helps overcome that problem and the retention problem that is impacted by that.
And I don't want to get too far off in the weeds on kind of the internals of how this works, but we actually already have agreements in place with the Big 3 and now Big 4 publishers, Cengage, McGraw-Hill, Pearson, Wiley, where if we implement a program like this, they actually can give us negotiated pricing on not only some of the actual textbooks, but as well the disposable content that we have to replace. So that helps drive some of that too. Yes.
Could you speak a little bit to the student delivery model for the school where you do this? I mean, how do the students go about getting their book?
Yeah, so we actually procure based upon the adoption deadlines that we established for you guys. We're able to take that information, source the material. We're going to leverage MBS Direct to do that. MBS will, based upon the student's schedule, and year one, we may ask the students to take a step to go in either through registration integration here or directly to MBS Direct to reserve their books. But then those books will be assembled into individual packages for the students. They will be delivered here to a location yet to be determined for distribution, and they will be available for distribution to the students before the first day of class.
So they may not actually have the books on the first day of class. It'll be dependent upon the student. If they're off campus, they would have to come on campus again. And that may depend upon the model. Is there a way that they could be delivered to the students?
Yeah, actually, and again, this came up in the committee meeting, and we do this at Lees McRae. There's actually a certain cohort of distance learning students who we ship the books to and provide shipping labels to be able to return the books to us at the end of the semester. There's a cost associated with that. I think it's around $20 a student for the distance learning students, but we are able to do that. What we don't want to do is have MBS shipped to all your students individually, because guess where they're all going to end up? Your post office is not going to like me very much, and I don't want to get on their bad side. So we want to be in charge of coordinating and distributing those materials at the beginning of the semester. Yes, sir.
One other variation on this is drop add. And courses are going to disappear and other courses are going to appear on student schedules.
Mm-hmm.
What happens then for the package of books?
It's a great question, and it's funny, we actually had requested some, as a follow-up to our previous meeting 2 weeks ago, we requested some information on what drop add looks like here, and we just got it today. Matter of fact, I spent most of the morning kind of hacking through it to see if I can figure out what the activity looked like here. So in a nutshell, from day one of class through now, for this current semester, here at the Demarest campus, approximately 10% of your students have engaged in dropping or adding a course, or probably in most cases doing both. So the actual number of students involved is somewhere between 250 and 500. At the Athens campus, you had roughly, and not surprisingly, roughly double that. You had about 20% of the students who were either adding a course after the first day of class or dropping it. However, I will put an asterisk to this. A lot of that was due to 2 courses where it looked like one complete section was dropped and then another complete section was added. So it looked like just sort of not even a change of book, but a change of course or section number or time. How does that compare? I see some institutions where drop add rates are touching 40%, where 40% of the students are changing their courses in one way or the other during that time period. So this model probably wouldn't be a good fit for them. At 10%, it's not a problem. And we have to remember how many of your students today are coming to class without their books. So if you've got 10% of your students who are making decisions to change courses and perhaps have to wait a few days to get the replacement book, it's still in most cases better than what is happening today.
What was the estimate you gave us on a replacement book and drop add? Was it 2 or 3 days? What was it?
3 days. 3 days.
3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't have it on the shelf, then they'll have it to the student in 3 days.
So, but to expand upon that, we haven't made the final decision on how we could make the exchanges a little bit tighter. One of the things Matthew and I were talking about for Piedmont today is the kind of data we got from you guys was we can actually pinpoint courses where we see the most drop add activity, and obviously that could easily drive a decision for us to say add 10 copies of biology to exchange in or out, or 10 copies of the math book, things like that. Probably not every book, but that's certainly manageable. Yes, ma'am.
So you said earlier that nursing and health sciences were excluded from this, and is that all programs in health sciences at all levels, freshman through senior, or just the two clinical majors and then the nursing clinical portion?
It's the clinical
So it'd
portion.
be like the 2 years of the nursing, and then, so then the other health sciences programs that don't have clinicals, they would be included then?
Yes.
So like sport and fitness administration or healthcare administration?
Yes.
Just athletic training, clinic, CBT, and nursing?
That's right. I think, isn't that the ones that, Yes.
Does this model apply to part-time students at the same cost?
So that's a great question. So it covers whatever range of activity that a student is engaged in, whether they're registered for 12 hours or 15 hours or 8 hours. So the question also comes up, well, what about summer school? How do you handle that, where most of the students are likely to be part-time, maybe taking 1 or 2 courses? We can actually do that on a per credit hour basis for the summer semester to kind of bridge those students over. Yes.
What are the guidelines for highlighting and writing in the margins and things like that in the book?
That's a great question. Same as they are today for our rentals. Students can freely highlight, write in the margins. You know, as long as they don't bring it back to us either, you know, soaked from being left in the rain or, you know, with the cover missing or something like that, we take it back and recycle it. Any other questions? Those are all great questions. Yes, ma'am.
You said you wanted to implement your program hopefully till fall, in fall 2019. Would that apply for every student, even the finishing of senior, or would you phase it in just with the incoming freshmen?
It's a great question. So yes, everybody.
Everybody.
Everybody. Everybody.
So just clarify, if a student's taking 6 hours and they were mandated to participate, they would pay the $300. Correct.
You know, I mean, it's something we could look at.
So that's negotiable.
Sorry, we have quite a few part-time students.
So that's something that's between the administration and that.
Yeah. I mean, there's always, the more tweaks you do, if it's a nominal effect, then it's a nominal effect. If it becomes a major thing, then we have to.
You don't get hung up on the $300 because all that's negotiable depending on what the administration decides they want to include as a package. The more they want to include in the package, obviously, the more he's going to have to make adjustments. The less they want, the less. So we can't say for certain that it's going to be that figure. It all depends on what the final product looks like.
Yes, sir.
Are there any accountability measures in terms of what a faculty member is allowed to purchase, or if you see a dramatic change in the materials they're providing? What is the process that dictates or controls that?
Great. So some of you, anybody here from North Carolina? Anybody familiar with App State and the program? Yes. Okay. So no, we're not looking to do what App State does. App State has a lot of rules and regs and committee approvals for what course materials can be used and changes can be made. And by the way, both of my kids graduated from App State, so I can speak firsthand that the faculty there don't follow all of those rules at all. My kids still pay the flat fee, or I pay the flat fee because of it. But what we do and what we have done, for example, at Lees McRae is we measure each year what the sort of the underlying cost of the program is to make sure that it continues to be viable at its current price point. And where we see individual behaviors with a faculty member or maybe with a department where they have made choices to maybe go from using 4 books in a class to using 10, happened, or where they've made a choice to add up a lot of additional disposable content when adds to the core cost. What we do is we consult with that faculty member individually just to let them know how that could impact the program going forward. And in most cases, the faculty or department understands and we're able to come to a reasonable compromise.
So does that mean we will be negotiating with you or with our administration on?
I think it's a full partnership.
I've spoken with folks at Lees McRae about this, and it is not an issue. There was one professor that had one particular situation that was rather unusual, but, because I wasn't concerned that this might come up, and what I've heard from the professors there is they've been able to use whatever material they want to use. They haven't had to worry about that.
That's right. And make the changes that you need to make. So if you move to a new edition, we're going to move to the new edition with you. If you want to go from Cengage to Pearson, we'll make that move with you. We're not looking to get in your way, okay? But we will keep you up to date if we see some major changes that may drive the cost up in the future. Great. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's late in the day, and I'm probably the last thing between you and dinner, so thanks for your time, and please come to see me if you have any other questions.
Thank you. I have 3 very brief reminders. One is if you are in cohort 1 of Quality Matters training, your second course starts today. If you are in cohort 2 of your Quality Matters training, your first course is going to start today. And I can tell you, I was going through as cohort 1. It's been really informative. I had no idea what my readiness was to teach online, and now I know. And I got to take the typing test for the first time in probably 20 years. So it's been really informative. The second thing I want to remind you about is the QEP and our Lions Pride Day that we're going to have, focusing on undergraduate research. Please, please encourage your students to apply to present. It looks great on their resume. It looks great for getting into graduate school. It's something that our students are probably already doing anyway. So please encourage them to come out and participate. I'd also like to encourage all of you to participate in the PERC conference that the School of Education holds. It is March, Lyndon here? 23rd. So that is a educator renewal conference. Mr. Stromberg will be there. A lot of the faculty from the School of Ed, but also graduate students come back. A lot of our partners in the community come out and present. And you may find that you have a really great time sharing in that experience. We also have wonderful goodies at that conference. So those are my 3 updates. Unless anybody has any other questions, then we are free to go.
Dr.